Welcome to all of you from around the world and to today's Emergency Roundtable and Symposium sponsored by the Executive Intelligence Review magazine. We have titled today's proceedings, A Dialogue of Civilizations. Is there still time to prevent the war against Iran from escalating into a global nuclear conflict? We might all, however, also well have asked, by what means do we propose to prevent humanity's descent, willful or involuntary, into the maelstrom of total war, a war that might involve thermonuclear, biochemical, and other weapons of mass depopulation and destruction? Just over 50 years ago, in the spring of 1975, the founder of Executive Intelligence Review magazine, the economist and statesman Lyndon LaRouche, authored a proposal promoting economic development as a way to end conflict in Southwest Asia. It was called the Oasis Plan. In 1976, LaRouche ran his very first United States presidential campaign to make that policy America's policy. 28 years later, in 2004, during his final campaign for the presidency, LaRouche gave an interview in which he again discussed his Oasis Plan as an immediate approach to Southwest Asian security through the joint economic advancement of a community of nations.
We have a security interest, which does not mean simply protection. It means we have to have agreements which are overriding that people in that area accept, that any attempt to break those agreements will be jointly resisted by all the nations in the area, by a common agreement and common interest. You don't have to agree on everything, but you have to define certain things you will agree upon because you recognize you must defend these things in your common interest. So that's what I was aimed at. Okay. There must be, and also the development of Southwest Asia, which has to be looked at as the crossroads between the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. What is needed is an economic development which does not look at the desert as an impossible thing, but has to look at large-scale water management development. We have to look in the long term at petroleum and natural gas resources, not as fuels, but as petrochemical feedstocks for development of industries in the area, and to use the crossroads area as an area of development. If we build transportation routes, not only through the canals, but land routes, we're going to put along the land routes new cities, new centers, which will be centers of production, which means we're going to transform a long-term development of what has been the desert area, a gradual development, which will play a key part in the relationship between Europe and Asia, not merely through the canal, but is actually a part of the connection of the process of production.
In her 10 Principles for a New Security and Development Architecture, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the founder of the International Schiller Institute and the editor-in-chief of Executive Intelligence Review, not only revived LaRouche's idea, but proposed the diplomacy to implement it. This would happen through a dialogue of civilizations rather than a clash of civilizations, as championed by the late Samuel P. Huntington and others. Zepp-LaRouche proposed that the approach to the required diplomacy must be that advised by and devised by the 15th century Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa, called the coincidence of opposites. Pope Leo XIV, who referred to Nicholas of Cusa by name in remarks that he made in Rome this past October 25th, said just yesterday in his Easter address, and I quote, "Let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash wars choose peace. Not a peace imposed by force, but through dialogue, not with the desire to dominate others, but to encounter them." To that end, we have assembled today's emergency symposium. We are pleased that the participants come from not only diverse, but what may even be divergent or opposing approaches to this most urgent matter. This is as it should be. In this time of closing minds and shrinking hearts, it is not might which makes right. The search for, the recognition of, and the defense of that which is right is the only power that deserves the support of humanity. In this search, all voices must be equally represented and equally heard. And it is in service to that for which we are all assembled today. Now, let me make clear from the outset today that we wish to leave significant time for an exchange among our speakers after each has given their presentations. We therefore request that each of our speakers take no more than 10 minutes for their initial remarks so that ample time can be left for cross-discussion and the posing of questions. Let me also note for participants online that some presentations will be given in languages other than English. Interpretation is available by going to the bottom of your screen and selecting the interpretation option, indicated either by a globe or by the word more, which you have to select, and the options that then appear for Spanish, French, and German. Now it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, the founder of the Schiller Institute and the editor-in-chief of Executive Intelligence Review, Helga Zepp-LaRouche.
Well, dear honorable participants, ladies and gentlemen, friends of the Schiller Institute from around the world. The title of my speech is Short Road to Hell, or Daring to Have a Sublime View of Mankind, the Need to Have an Extended Oasis Plan for Southwest Asia. It could very well be that the present generations of the human species lack the moral fiber to avoid our self-annihilation in a global thermonuclear war, because that danger does exist in the short term. If we don't find a solution to the war started by the United States and Israel as an unprovoked war of aggression against Iran. 5 weeks into the war, it is clear that none of the goals defined by the United States side have been accomplished. Despite repeated assassinations of leading Iranian officials and negotiators, there has been no agreement, no regime change. The population, on the contrary, is rallying behind the government more than ever. Neither the nuclear research facilities nor the ballistic missile systems have been dismantled. The Strait of Hormuz, which was open before, is now closed for all hostile parties. The consequences for the world economy is already dramatic, and it could become catastrophic if the war should extend for more weeks. Already now, millions of poor people and many businesses suffer from increased energy prices. The interruption in fertilizer supplies could turn into mass starvation. The plunge into a global depression almost certainly will trigger a blowout of the totally over-indebted global financial system of $2.4 quadrillion. But also many features of the international system are in disarray. The business model of the Gulf states, ambitious roles in international trade and finance, luxurious lifestyles for the elites, protected by American military bases, is in shambles. The collective West is not so collective anymore. NATO fizzles. The entire post-Cold War architecture is crumbling, with the global South determined to end 500 years of colonialism for good. The old order is disintegrating, the shape of the new one still in question. The biggest casualty, however, threatens to be our humanity. A martial language, quote, bombing Iran back into the Stone Age, where they belong. No quarter, no mercy for our enemies. These are comments of many which have been called forth American as well as international legal experts questioning the violation of international law and the Code of War. Cardinal Kubitsch of Chicago appeals to the conscience, protesting a video on the official X account of the White House, which combines scenes of action movies with the actual material from the war against Iran. The words of Pope Leo XIV on this Easter during his Urbi et Orbi address have been a clear message, unmistakably against the perpetrators of today's dangerous war in Southwest Asia. Let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash war choose peace. No peace imposed by force, but through dialogue. Not with the desire to dominate others, but to encounter them. Where is this supposed to end? As we will hear in the course of this Zoom meeting, the non-proliferation system may be almost irreversibly destroyed. Many nations concluding that the only way of averting an attack is the possession of nuclear weapons. The disappearance of international law in favor of a complete return of the principle of might makes right, and if we even get there, and not end up in the delusion that some chosen people can outlive a thermonuclear Armageddon. Now, the countries of the world can either adopt what we are proposing now or go all the way, let the war play out with the option of the use of nuclear weapons. There is still the choice to make a decision for the first option. So what we wish to propose is a radically different approach, one which does not extend the present political trajectories of the different political forces in a linear way into the near future, but looks at Southwest Asia from the standpoint how it could look in 20, 50, 100 years from now. Today, where the Artemis astronauts are flying for the first time 4,000 miles beyond the moon, which will take human beings to the farthest distance in space ever, is a wonderful moment to reflect that soon we will combine the different Artemis, Roscosmos, Chang'e, and Tianwen and other nations' space missions into one of the international community, because it has dawned on us that the challenges of interstellar space travel in a universe of more than 2 trillion galaxies are far too big for just one nation. Looking at our planet from the standpoint of the universe at large, we see geopolitical conflict. We see only the common interest of the one humanity to progress. By that time, it will be regarded as self-evident that we will have applied to that region of Southwest Asia all available technologies to transform the desert into green landscapes with canals and artificial lakes, large-scale forests, farmland, orchards. By that time, the present level of AI, quantum computing, and ocean farming will look like technology fossils from an early age. The developed fusion economy will have eliminated the fight for the control of oil and gas, as well as the basic needs of the world population since a long time. So taking the view of our descendants as our own perspective, the intellectuals, scientists, and engineers from the different countries of Southwest Asia, from India to the Mediterranean, from the Caucasus to the Gulf states, should take that region as a whole and determine which development corridors are the most suitable given the geographical realities to transform it into a fully developed land. Given that almost all of the region is an expanding desert, the creation of new water sources is a priority, based on different components, ranging from a canal system from the Mediterranean to the Dead Sea, desalination of large amounts of ocean water with the aid of peaceful nuclear energy, accessing aquifers, using space technology to locate underground lakes, ionization of the moisture of the atmosphere, etc. China has transformed already large territories like Xinjiang and the Northeast from deserts into well-to-do economic territories and has offered its assistance. The 5C strategy of Syrian President Assad of 2004 connecting the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, the Caspian Sea, and the Black Sea, is still a valid conception for an infrastructure network integrating waterways, fast train systems, and highways as main transport arteries within development corridors around which energy distribution and communication systems can be installed to create site conditions for investment in new cities, industrial parks, and development zones. Much of the lines are obvious since the times of the ancient Silk Road. Others will be developed due to breakthroughs in technology. Here are some of the many more possible examples. One such corridor can connect Tehran via Baghdad, Amman to Aqaba, then to the Sharm el-Sheikh to Cairo, which is partially underway. Kannst du die Bilder ein? The Iran-Iraq-Syria railway link is in its early planning stages, but the full Baghdad-Amman-Cairo corridor is not yet operational. This route crosses the Euphrates River, where ancient trade routes can be transformed into modern corridors from the port of Basra in Iraq at the Persian Gulf, onward further northwest to Aleppo. Of this, 51 kilometers are built. This is now the Iraq Development Road, a 17 billion high-speed rail and highway project from Basra to the Turkish border near Aleppo. First phase is supposed to be operational by 2031. Existing rail lines should be modernized into fast train systems and integrated with highways, energy distribution communication systems. This is in process. Syria and Iraq are actively rehabilitating and modernizing existing lines through full integration. This could be sped up if prioritized. The land route to India, connecting the Iranian rail network to Zahedan on the Iran-Pakistan border, is online. The freight service between Zahedan in Iran and Quetta in Pakistan has restarted. The Chabahar-Zahedan railway is near completion as of 2026. Other lines go from Deir el-Zor to Tadmor, Palmyra to Damascus and Beirut. This is in process. Post-Civil War rehabilitation of Syrian railway is underway, including the Damascus-Deir el-Zor line. The Beirut connection remains politically challenging, but is under discussion. Another north-south link is from Syria to the industrial zones of the Suez Canal. This is in planning. Syria and Egypt have held preliminary talks, but no active construction yet. Another south railway from Damascus to Mecca and Medina. A revival of the historic Hejaz railway was agreed upon by Turkey, Syria, and Jordan in September 2025. Reconstruction is planned, but not yet begun. A tunnel under the Bab el-Mandeb Strait from Djibouti to the Arab Peninsula is not yet under construction, not yet funding plans, but it could be decided. Links to Europe, the Black Sea, and Russia partially in place. Existing rail and ferry links via Turkey to Europe are operational. However, through sanctions have impacted the Russian connection. In 20, 30, 50 years from now, the integrated infrastructure of all of Southwest Asia could look as dense as the Greater Bay Area of China around Shenzhen, Guangdong, and Shanghai. If all the nations of Southwest Asia would agree on such a development perspective, it would be as well in the real interest of the United States and European nations, since it would define a perspective of joint prosperity rather than the perils of a looming world war. It would be as well guarantee the existence of Israel, which cannot possibly count on its own security if it's surrounded by neighbors who will have generation after generation being governed by hate. It is also clear that the countries of the global majority must have the strongest voice in determining the future of the world order, since the use of nuclear weapons would destroy them as well, albeit maybe a few weeks later, as Indonesian President Sukarno warned at the Asia-African Conference in Bandung in 1955 already. As he emphasized then, the countries of the Global South may be politically and economically relatively still weaker, but together they represent a moral authority to raise their voice for peace in the world. As the destiny of the entire human species is at stake in this present conflict, they, and they have become much stronger since, must take an active role in the determination of its outcome. The international community must combine a common development perspective, which must include the extended OASIS plan, as well as the Africa plan for 2063, as well as other components of the World Land Bridge perspective presented by the Schiller Institute in 2014. It must be combined with a dialogue of civilizations, which must bring forward the best tradition of all cultures and civilizations, because such an approach will demonstrate that the torch of progress of all of mankind was passed over the millennia from one civilization to the other, from Ethiopia to China, to Persia, to India and Mesopotamia, from the land of the thousand cities to Egypt, and finally Greece, and eventually the Americas. A dialogue of all these cultural contributions will make clear to all people living on Earth the tremendous richness which lies in the unity in diversity, that while we all share the ability to discover universal principles in science and art, which are valid for all of humanity, that the diversity is actually an enrichment, which makes all the more culturally prosperous and clearly is the intention of the Creator. If one looks at the longer arc of human development, which is actually only a shorter span in the development of our universe, it is clear that the theory of the Russian scientist Vladimir Vernadsky is proven correct, namely that the power of the noosphere is continuously increasing relative to the power of inorganic and the biosphere, meaning that the role of creative reason as a geological force is expanding in the evolution. From that perspective, we as human species are now challenged to apply the new paradigm resulting out of the increased significance of the noosphere to the way how we organize our affairs politically and economically among ourselves. This requires that we change the axioms of our thinking about the image of man and the role of man in the universe accordingly, which means that we have to put the interest of the one humanity first before we define all other national and cultural interests in affinity with the interest of mankind as a whole. In all of classical literature, what separates the tragic outcome of drama from the ability to determine a solution on a higher level than the one on which the conflict arose is the ability of the main actors to elevate their thinking to the level of the sublime, that quality of mind which is associated with creative mentation, with agape, with love for mankind. The sublime mind does not seek personal advantage or pleasure, but connects his identity with the fate of all of humanity, not only in the present, but for all future generations to come. Nobody can deny that it is the takeover of the liberal paradigm in Western civilization, that notion that everything is allowed, everything goes, which went along with the cancellation of our classical heritage, which led to the disappearance of the sublime in our thinking. It can be revived, but only if we will do so as a willful act. This is the test I spoke of if we have the moral fiber as a species to survive. So therefore, what we are proposing here is not some arbitrary utopian proposal, but a very concrete, albeit not pragmatic way to create a future for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Helga. And if you've just joined us, you are now participating in the Emergency Forum and Symposium of Executive Intelligence Review, a dialogue of civilizations. Is there still time to prevent the war against Iran from escalating into a global nuclear conflict? You've just heard Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the editor-in-chief of Executive Intelligence Review and founder of the Schiller Institute. We have a change in our program. Our next speaker will be Dr. Khalil Shirgholami of Iran. He is Iran's ambassador to Armenia and the former Director General of Iran's Institute for Political International Studies. Welcome to today's symposium.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for giving me this chance. Although I'm an unexpected guest in this very valuable seminar, online seminar. Meanwhile, I'm really happy to be with you today. Well, the ongoing aggression against Iran has nothing to do with the nuclear issue. President Trump had several times had chance to find real solution and settlement, political settlement for the nuclear issue of Iran. And at least 2 times he betrayed diplomacy and he betrayed the negotiating table. And he bombed the negotiation table, actually. If I'm gonna very briefly just mention the very last round of negotiations there in Geneva, there was real chances for some sort of settlement. The Iranian delegation, the negotiators, they provided a very pragmatic, workable package of proposals that could be a very good foundation and a starting point for a real settlement for the nuclear issue. And not surprisingly, even the American negotiators, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, they also emphasized that it could be a very good, let's say, foundation for any settlement. And just a day after they concluded there in Geneva, the new round of aggression against Iran started. It was again the same way as it happened in June in 12 Days War, you know. Well, there were many analyses inside Iran, and it was quite controversial that how come Iran accepted the idea of a ceasefire or halt in the confrontation last time when the Americans and Israelis asked for the ceasefire, because of the fact that it was not a real peace or a real settlement. It was only a pause in the confrontation, while the Israeli side was under heavy pressure, having been hit by Iranians very strongly daily basis. The Iranian missiles hit Tel Aviv, Haifa, many other places in Israel, and Israel was under heavy pressure. And again, this new round of aggression happened based on the same fake, misperceived notions that Iran is weak, Iran would not be able to counterbalance or to counterstrike, and the Iranian political establishment would be toppled in case we start this aggression. All those misperceptions and misinformation about Iran, what Irans mean, what Iranian nations mean, what a real civilization means, they do not understand and they never try to understand it. And yeah, there is a proverb in English saying that if you fool me once, shame on you. If you fool me twice, shame on me. This has been the basis of the Iranian strategic mindset this time, that no more we can have any any source of trust with regard to any negotiation with the United States. We need to go for a new equation in which, in that equation, there will be real guarantees for non-aggression against Iran, for preserving Iran's rights for the nuclear peaceful energy and enrichment, and for the compensation for what has happened against Iran and all damages, all losses. And it was sadly the aggression, the new round of aggression against Iran started with bombing a school that we lost 168 female students, those girl students, which was a tragedy and very shameful provocation by the Americans. This is the situation, and the Iranian side is thinking about a new equation should emerge out of this new round of the conflict, based on the fact that the U.S. presence in the region has been a threat against Iran, and all those countries who hosted Americans for many years and many decades, trying to buy and to purchase security from the United States. First of all, they are providing the United States with the space to target Iranian people, to target Iranian, facilities and the Iranian people, the schools, the hospitals, the sport complexes, and the economic infrastructure as well. So, based on this understanding, in Iranian strategic mindset, this war is a war of existence. And based on this understanding, and based on the fact that the Iranians, as a long-standing civilization, has faced foreign aggression and foreign invasion for many times, and there is a deep-rooted also understanding about how we need to face against the aggression. Again, our nations are emerging and are calling for let's say, for a united national stance against this aggression, and to stand against aggression as long as the aggression exists and as long as they are not ceased. So this is the reality on the ground, and Iran did not have any other option than to strike back, to retaliate these unprovoked and shameful strikes against our country, be it against Israel, be it against the occupied territories, or also the United States bases and interests in the region. Well, for over a decade, we Iranians watched Western countries, Arab states, and their Israeli enablers stand by as our economy was deliberately crushed under the weight of America's illegal sanctions and maximum pressure campaign. We watched them eagerly comply with policies designed to destroy our nation, shatter our lives, crush our dreams, bankrupt our businesses, retour infrastructure, devalue our currency, and cut us off from normal trade and economic relations with the world. This has been the situation. We watch European leaders pathetically nod in satisfaction and offer pathetic lip service as Trump declared the JCPOA as a bad deal, using it as a cover for the most brutal campaign against our people, fully aware that scrapping the deal was nothing more than his sick, twisted obsession with erasing his predecessor legacy. We Iranians watched the United States officials and their Israel lobby handlers proudly parade before Congress, armed with figures and statistics, boasting how their vicious policies has tanked our currency, spiked unemployment, sent inflation soaring, and inflicted trillions of dollars in damage on our already strained economy. This was the situation. We watched also them cheer these results and laugh at the shattered lives of the millions of human beings in Iran. We watch them dutifully support the first Trump administration's sadistic policies even during the COVID pandemic, while his criminal Secretary of State moved heaven and earth to block Iran from securing even a meager $5 billion of IMF loan, while their own governments freely spend hundreds of billions to protect their populations from the same virus. We Iranians watch them shamelessly endorse Israel's attacks on our territory under obscene slogan, Israel has the right to defend itself, while branding Iran's legitimate self-defense as recklessness and demanding that our government refrain from escalation. Yeah, we watch them upload the assassination of our war veterans and heroes, our scientists and our brightest minds, all in the name of non-proliferation, while they kept their mouths tightly shut about Israel's nuclear arsenal and expansionist agenda. We Iranians watch them openly or in private urging more pressure, more destruction, more assassinations, and more war and conflict. All of it justified by the ludicrous and baseless claim that Iran's 6 nuclear weapons, a lie they knew was false. They were fully aware that the enrichment levels and constraints Iran had accepted under the JCPOA and during subsequent negotiations for a new deal made militarization of Iranian nuclear program impossible. They invested offer excuse to engineer our destruction, and they laughed while ensuring the pain was ours alone.
Excuse me,
And
Ambassador. Sorry.
this
I really do not want to interrupt you at all, but we have another speaker who has a time constraint. We're at a question. Will you be able to stay on for our dialogue? Because there are going to be questions and discussion.
Yeah, Iran has been always willing and welcoming any diplomatic solution, be it for the nuclear issue or be it for the ongoing war against the country. But first of all, there are red lines for ending this war. An immediate cessation of the United States and Israeli military action should be the very first starting point. Very reasonable precondition. Then first of all, the aggressor should stop the aggression. This is very natural precondition.
Let me simply say to you, excuse me, I'm not trying to interrupt you. It's simply, we want you to continue, but we have another speaker who has a time constraint I just have to get to because he's going to have to be leaving. Would it be possible for you to conclude at the moment, and then we just go to the next person? Is that possible? And can you stay with us? That's what I'm asking. Can you stay on our connection?
I was told that I had 15 minutes, and still I was only talking for 7 minutes. No problem. So I can only conclude that those who started this aggression against Iran, first of all, they should go for a real ceasefire, a real guarantee that the aggression against Iran would not reoccur, and the fact that there should be also meaningful mechanisms for compensation for all losses and damages they created for Iran and Iranian people. This is the situation, and Iran as a civilization will stand against bullying, against occupations, against all those provocations by the United States and Israel. And as long as they are continuing this aggression, we will stand against it. Thank you so much.
Thank you also, sir. And you'll see in a moment why I was asking. We are more than interested. We want to hear everything you have to say. And we just have to move to another speaker who has a time constraint. That speaker, and if you've just joined us, this is the Emergency Forum and Symposium of Executive Intelligence Review, a dialogue of civilizations. Is there still time to prevent the war against Iran? You have just heard from escalating into a global nuclear conflict. We have just heard Dr. Khalil Shirgholami, Iran's ambassador to Armenia, the former Director General of Iran's Institute for Political International Studies, and we hope to hear from you in a few minutes again. Our next speaker is Ambassador and Professor Dr. Manuel Hassassian of the Palestinian Authority. Welcome to today's symposium. I think you're muted, excuse me.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm always privileged to be with the Schiller Institute. And I think, this symposium is a very important and critical symposium where, minds, intellectuals should meet to find plausible solutions to this intricate and complex problem. Since, the time restraint is 10 minutes, I will try as much as possible to put, certain kinds of prognosis to this conflict. And by just starting asking the question, escalation or diplomacy? It is one of the most critical dilemmas in contemporary international relations. As the geopolitical tensions intensify, the choice between military confrontation and negotiated settlement will determine not only regional stability, but the survival of global security. We have to understand this balance is essential to preventing catastrophic outcomes and sustaining peace. The war stands at a precarious stalemate marked by periodic escalation, but not decisive breakthrough. Military operations continue to impose significant costs on all sides, while strategic deterrence has so far prevented a wider regional war or nuclear, of course, confrontation. The balance remains fragile on all sides. External powers are engaged in containment rather than settlement and conflict resolution. So there is no clear horizon within this perspective. The situation remains volatile, suspended between escalation and self-elusive path to de-escalation. I think it is important to note that this war is not being in isolation of the repercussions and ramifications in the context of global security, in the context of world trade relations, in the context of instability and insecurity. The Iran war can be stopped, but the window today is very narrow, very fragile, and time sensitive. While nuclear escalation is not inevitable, from a strategic standpoint, nuclear war remains a low probability outcome, even under current escalation and tension. Neither side has a clear incentive to cross to nuclear threshold because the consequences, the repercussions would be catastrophic globally. There has been restraints from bombarding nuclear facilities, as we can see so far. But the risk will be there. Escalation dynamics are accelerating. Retaliation and counter-retaliation is going on. Right now, the situation hinges on basically urgent diplomatic efforts like active mediation, moderated by Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey. And it's pushing for a 45-day, as you know, ceasefire framework. What would trigger nuclear escalation? I think regime survival in Iran being directly threatened. Massive destruction of nuclear infrastructure leading to use it or lose it. And breakdown of command and control clarity. The best case scenario will be controlled de-escalation. The trajectory of this will be negotiations mediated back-channel negotiations reopen between US and Iran, military activity drops to low-intensity proxy engagements, and maritime security, like the Strait of Hormuz, stabilizes. However, the strategic logic, all actors recognize mutual vulnerability and shift from escalation to damage limitation. The regional outcome: no regime collapse in Iran, Israel holds deep strikes, the Gulf states push for regional security framework discussions, and then we have de facto restoration of deterrence equilibrium. The trajectory here continued to hit it for that strikes, direct or via proxies. No full ceasefire, but informal red lines, I would say, emerges. Cyber, maritime, and limited missile exchange will continue. China and Russia will increase their diplomatic strenuous efforts, and of course, their economic involvement will be much more visible. The regional outcome of all this, there will be a gradual shift towards multipolar security order. It's no more going to be controlled by the unipolar power of once called the Pax Americana. The US influence basically becomes more contested and more challenged by the emergence of big powers: China, Russia, India. Iran demonstrates and will continue to demonstrate resilience under this pressure. However, Israel maintains tactical superiority, but there will never be strategic resolutions. The worst case scenario is that regional war with nuclear risk will be there, but direct confrontation, strikes expand critical infrastructure and possibly nuclear facilities. How many harmony, or sorry, what I meant is that there will be lack of harmony in terms of connection. However, the last point in this worst case scenario is that the Hormuz Strait closure will create global economic shock. As we can see that this strait basically is open to 20% of oil, passing through it. So 20% of the oil provision is through the Strait of Hormuz, which could play a very significant role in terms of spiral inflation, global trade insecurities, and what have you. So after trying to basically outline the major impact of this war and the reasons for this war to take place, I think the only reasonable outcome that should be favorable to everyone is peaceful negotiations and economic cooperation and development. And of course, we have been time and again talking about the Oasis plan and how it could contribute basically to the stabilization of the international order and system, try to create incentives for economic development and production, try to foster certain kind of connections between entities in the global economy to work together towards flourishing and booming and trying to fight the scarcities of water, the scarcity of oil in the coming 20 years, trying to overcome the challenges of food shortages and what have you. So the Oasis plan can help in the de-escalation process by shifting incentives from zero-sum conflict or confrontation to share economic gains through large-scale regional projects, especially in the fields of water, energy, and infrastructural development. By improving livelihoods and fostering cooperation between nations, we can create an ambiance of total cooperation and total dependency on each other in the process of trying to develop economically, socially, culturally, and politically. It actually builds practical foundations for diplomacy and long term peace. We hope that this war will end very soon, and we hope that the outcome in ending this war will be through negotiations, through the settlement of differences, and through taking into considerations economic stability, political stability that will resonate basically to every single nation in the world and try to overcome the formidable challenges of environment and the challenges of the natural disasters and what have you. Through economic cooperation and through political dialogue and through conflict resolution, human beings could reach agreements to save humanity and to save the international humanitarian laws and try basically to put the new social and political order into perspective. We are living in a very chaotic world today, and that chaos has been the result of the control by a new unipolar power, which is the United States of America. Since its advent as the unipolar power with the crumbling of the Soviet Union, we have seen the shift from the balance of power into a unipolar power. And that triggered regional conflicts, instability, and insecurity. Now, we wish that this Iran war, which is unfortunate with the heavy risks and the casualties that we have seen and the destruction that we are seeing on television, will be the opening of an era of harmony and conciliation, an era with a multipolar system, an era with a basket currency, including the petro-US dollars, in an era of total cooperation rather than discordance, an era that will really try to solve the so long unsolved problem, which is the Palestinian problem. We believe that this could be, from an optimistic perspective, of course, the opening for a new era for peace and development. And I always say that there will never be peace and development and security in the Middle East without the Palestinians achieving the right to self-determination and the establishment of their independent Palestinian state. I think, one of the repercussions of this war is that the visibility of the Palestinian issue will come to the fore, and that in itself basically will reduce tensions and chaos and will bring all the parties together, the Arab world, the European, Southwest Asia, Asia, and what have you, into perspective by trying more or less to foster good relationships, economic trade relationships, and that will in itself basically will provide a secure ambience globally. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Hassassian. And that was Professor Dr. Manuel Hassassian of the Palestinian Authority. Thank you very much for your presentation. Our next presenter is Professor Zhang Weiwei of China, Professor of International Relations at Fudan University in Shanghai, and Director of its China Institute. Welcome.
Thank you. And hello, Madame Helga LaRouche. Hello, everyone. Today, we are here to voice our strongest condemnation against the military attacks launched by the United States and Israel against Iran, a war of aggression that has violated international law, trampled upon human rights, and brought unprecedented disaster to to the Iranian people and beyond. I'd like to make a few points here. First and foremost, we are deeply grieved and outraged by the heavy civilian casualties caused by this aggression and by its reckless attacks on schools, bridges, sports facilities, universities, and other civilian targets, which constitute a war crime. This is not only a blatant violation of international humanitarian law, but also a betrayal of the most basic human conscience. Second, equally appalling is this U.S. Israeli attacks on Iran's nuclear power station facilities, which undermine the international nuclear non-proliferation system and risk triggering nuclear contamination for the whole region, putting the lives of tens of millions at ever higher risk. We must stop this immediately. Third, the war has also spilled over to the whole Gulf region, plunging the region into greater chaos and instability. What began as an attack on Iran has quickly spread, with military conflicts and tensions escalating in neighboring countries, creating a vicious cycle of violence that shows no sign of abating. Furthermore, this war has also posed a serious threat to the global economy, sending shockwaves through the world energy market, trading relations, and supply chains. The Hormuz Straits, a key global energy and material transportation channel, has been disrupted by the conflict. While bringing disaster to the world, the US reckless attack has also exposed its own deep-seated problems and its own weaknesses, revealing the fragility and the coming possible collapse of the US-led unipolar world order. The Blitz attack launched by the US and Israel has failed, and they may well sink into a quagmire of a war of attrition, which they have no chance to win. With Iran's firm and swift resistance, the myth of the US military might has been shattered. Donald Trump clearly wants to end the war as soon as possible, but to save face, he may still launch reckless attacks, causing more damages and bloodshed. Yet, the basic fact today is that the US cannot defeat a determined and proud nation like Iran, who has been under US sanction for close to 5 decades. Furthermore, the US economic hegemony is shaking. Without doubt, the de facto blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has affected all countries. The surge in global oil and gas prices has directly impacted the US economy, driving up inflation, plunging supply chains into crisis, while US federal debt has exceeded $39 trillion. And global de-dollarization is accelerating, and the war could trigger the collapse of the petrodollar system and an unprecedented financial crisis for the US and beyond. Moreover, the US moral hegemony has gone bankrupt. The US disregards international law and blatantly practices the law of the jungle, is now facing a swift backlash. The US has rapidly transformed and transitioned from World Cup into an isolated loner. Let me add this. Many people complain that UN is useless, but we see today is that numerous countries have publicly stated the war has not been authorized by UN, therefore refuse to support it. In other words, the moral authority enshrined in the UN Charter cannot be challenged. The challengers will face more and more backlashes. Finally, the US alliance system is collapsing. Not a single US ally is willing to participate in the Hormuz Strait escort operation proposed by Donald Trump. Gulf states that have paid high premiums to the US have not received protection. Instead, that become the main victims of the war. Now let me turn briefly to the Oasis plan put forward by Madame Helga LaRouche. I'd like to inform the audience here that thanks to China's long-term commitment to green energy and sustainable development, China's energy dependency on foreign oil and gas has dropped to as low as 15% by the end of last year. And China's energy self-sufficiency rate is 85% now. As a result, China is far less affected by the worldwide energy shortage caused by this reckless war. What's more important is that China's efforts to turn deserts into green powerhouses have achieved stunning successes. Across China's vast northern area, a remarkable transformation is taking place. Once barren deserts are being reborn as massive green energy hubs. China's 4 major deserts in the north now host vast solar panel arrays and wind turbines, turning unproductive sand into a source of limitless clean energy. Solar panels not only generate electricity, but also shield the sand from wind erosion, creating shaded areas under the solar panels where drought-resistant vegetation can grow, animals can live. This mode of power on panel, grass under panel, and breathing between panels that turn the sea of sand into thriving ecological and energy oasis. China's renewable power generation, say last year, reached about 3,500 terawatt hour, half of which come from solar and wind power, exceeding the total power generation of the European Union, which is around 2,700 terawatt hour for a given year. In other words, if peace and development can be restored in the Middle East, we can really put this Oasis plan into operation with the help of China and all others, all those in favor of peace and sustainable development. So I try to finish my speech with this slightly optimistic note. And thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang. And if you've just joined us, you were just listening to Professor Zhang Weiwei of China, Professor of International Relations at Fudan University in Shanghai, and Director of its China Institute. We're going to go to Helga Zepp-LaRouche, and she has, I think, some remarks, and to others. Helga, please.
Well, I think the concern about the open-ended consequences of this war have been shared by all speakers. And I want to thank especially all of you who have endorsed the Oasis plan, because I do believe that if we would join our efforts to make this perspective more known, especially to the young people of the region, they would see this vision as a strong incentive to work to end this war forever. Because I do not think that, the present, we are at a conjuncture where either we make it to what I call an age of reason, and what Ambassador Hassassian also alluded to as a new era, which would include the solution for the Palestinian statehood. I think we are at a threshold, so I think that we should make all efforts to take the perspective outlined by Professor Zhang, because I think the example of Xinjiang and also the northeast of China is an example of what could happen in the entire South Asian and be the basis for an industrial development, infrastructure, connectivity. So I would actually urge that maybe out of this seminar, we would produce more video material and start to, not take this event as a one-time occurrence, but that we actually start to promote the OASIS plan very actively in universities, in think tanks, especially in the region, but also way beyond that. So that would be my hope coming out of this discussion. So I want to thank all the speakers so far for your contribution.
Thank you for saying that, Helga. And I just want to, for a moment, go back to Dr. Khalil Shirgholami, who's here for the first time with us, and we very much welcome you. I also just want to point out to everybody that's watching that this is clearly a highly unusual assembly, particularly for those of us in the transatlantic world. We very much appreciate the fact that we're hearing what we're hearing. So I wanted to give you, Dr. Shirgholami, a moment just to say whatever you'd like to say, both in response to what you've heard and any other comments that you were trying to make before. Okay, he's not unmuted at the moment. Okay, so
yes, he just unmuted.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Sorry, I was forced to move, so may I join for further discussion some minutes later? Okay, thank you.
Sure. We'll wait. We'll do that. Okay, very good. Professor Zhang, would you have anything that you'd like to add?
At this moment, no.
All right. Very good. We do have a video that was made for us today by Chaz Freeman of the United States, former Assistant Secretary of Defense and former Ambassador to Saudi Arabia. And so we're going to play that presentation. He was unable to be with us live, but he has often been with us, and he wanted to make sure that he participated in some form here. So we'll go to that now.
It's an honor to join this gathering. I really regret I cannot do so in person. The war in West Asia is hammering the final nail into the coffin of the Western-dominated world order. It also marks the collapse of the Pax Americana that followed the Cold War. The pattern of warfare pioneered in the Ukraine war has replaced that developed in the wars of the 20th century. The war in West Asia is once again demonstrating both the limited utility of the use of force and the imperative of professional diplomacy. In a world in which international law no longer inhibits aggression or the commission of war crimes, middle-ranking powers have no choice but to develop strategies that will enable them to survive attacks by the more powerful. Iran's response to the Israeli-sponsored war my country, the United States, has launched against it, is showing the world how this can be done. This war has failed to achieve any of its muddled objectives. It has demonstrated, however, the prohibitively high cost of treating diplomacy as a cover for military surprise attack rather than as a measure short of war by which to resolve differences between nations. And it is providing a textbook example of how not to use force. Wars can be justified only if they're aimed at producing something more than an orgy of death and destruction. This war is leaving both its victims and its perpetrators with no choice other than mutual accommodation in the interest of peace and development. In other words, diplomacy. In response to the Israeli and American aggression against it, Iran has seized control of the Strait of Hormuz. Since the United States has belatedly recognized that the U.S. military cannot effectively use force to open the strait, President Trump has advised countries dependent on hydrocarbon exports from the Persian Gulf to make their own efforts to open the strait rather than to depend on the United States to do this for them. In practice, the only way ships can pass through the strait is with the permission of Iran and the payment of transit fees to it. President Trump has inadvertently incentivized both America's allies in Europe and Asia and its Arab partners in the Persian Gulf to seek peace and covenants with Iran rather than to join Israel and the United States in aggression against it. Some oil and gas importing countries have already done this. The continued prosperity of the oil and gas exporting countries of the Persian Gulf now depends on their doing the same. Israel and the United States justified their aggression against Iran, in part, as necessary to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Instead, they have eliminated Iranian leaders who opposed building a bomb and replaced them with proponents of doing so. The war has vindicated the arguments of those in Iran that Israel could only be deterred by nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction. When Iran now fields nuclear weapons, which it will, others in its region and beyond it will do the same. The world is about to enter the, quote, darkening prospect of mass destruction, unquote, that President Kennedy cited as justifying the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This war has made that 56-year-old treaty moot. U.S. power projection to West Asia depends on bases in Europe. The United States is now engaged in a war of aggression beyond Europe. This has illustrated the irrelevance of NATO to anything but the defense of Europe against external aggression. President Trump has repeatedly demanded that the European members of NATO, as well as other U.S. allies, join the United States in attacking Iran. In response, we're hearing the first credible demands by European publics and political parties for the removal of U.S. forces and their bases from Europe. Ever more European governments have banned the United States from using their airspace to support a war that is not theirs. President Trump has angrily threatened to pull the United States out of NATO, but some in NATO now seem to be considering whether to push the United States out of Europe. Either way, the transatlantic alliance is on life support, if not dead. Israel sought this war to remove Iran as an obstacle to territorial expansion in West Asia to fulfill its vision of a greater Israel. In accord with the Greater Israel Project, it is using the war as cover for an attempt to annex southern Lebanon. It has de facto U.S. support for this. What began as a U.S.-backed Israeli war with Iran has become a widening regional war with devastating geoeconomic and geopolitical consequences. These include the decimation of the global economy amidst windfall profits for Russian and American oil and gas companies, the rearrangement of global geopolitics to the advantage of Russia and China, the disappearance of all deference to international law, and the prospect that many more countries will rely on nuclear weapons for their defense. It's hard to find a silver lining in this, but it is said that it is always darkest before the dawn. The multiple crises this war of aggression in West Asia has created may be an opportunity to imagine and organize a new and better world order. In the tradition of Greece and Rome, the phoenix self-immolates, only to be reborn from its own ashes. In the comparable Chinese tradition, the phoenix is a symbol of harmony, prosperity, and peaceful coexistence. Might we not combine these visions to create a zone of peace in war-torn West Asia? This gathering is discussing the Oasis Plan, which envisages a peace in West Asia achieved through the cooperative development of the region's water, energy, and economic integration. Perhaps, like the phoenix, such peace can yet be born from the ashes of an unjust and disastrously counterproductive war. If that opportunity exists, we must surely grasp it while we can.
This is the Emergency Forum and Symposium of the Executive Intelligence Review, a dialogue of civilizations. Is there still time to prevent the war against Iran from escalating into a global nuclear conflict? We have just heard Chaz Freeman of the United States, the former Assistant Secretary of Defense and former Ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Our final speaker is Purnima Anand of India, President of the BRICS International Forum. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I am really very happy to meet all of you, and I am listening very valuable speakers. And thank you to Schiller Institute to organize this historical moment at this very difficult time of the world. Because today we are all are thinking that what can be done and how we can stop this war. This is a dialogue of civilization where we have to understand where we are reaching through this war and what is our moral values, what is right, what is wrong. So everything is messed up, and now such dialogues can bring new lights and new hope that we are united and we are thinking positively to do something or at our ground. So this is really congratulations to the Schiller Institute, Madam Helga, and whole team, because from last 1 month you are continuously organizing such dialogue, and this dialogue is really spreading all over the world, and message is going because during last 2 months and when Russia Ukraine war started, I did not find peacemaker organizations and peace leaders and peace task forces to make the balance between both countries conflict. So, but now Schiller Institute is doing this initiative. This is really important. And today my presence is really can add on some feathers in this discussion, because BRICS countries are very important, and BRICS countries are able to make the balance between superpower and current conflict, because Iran is a member of BRICS, and China and Russia, they are veto power members. And I think if BRICS countries, this is a time of test for the BRICS countries, that they should showcase their unity, that they are having uh, influence in the world, and they united and they can control the mishappening. So this is high time for BRICS nations, and how to do it, because main thing is that Iran is not listening, US is not listening, Israel is not listening. So how countries can stop it? Because earlier United Nations Security Council was there, and they intervene and they either stop or either they make the negotiation. But at current time, there's no negotiation, there's nobody's coming in front line to hold this war. And President Trump is all the time passing time, because first, after starting the war, he gave 10 days to Iran to stop it. Then he extended for 5 days, and I don't know today in Indian media news is going on that President Trump is passing this time for 40 days, and Indian bullion market is rising. So this is the information in India. I don't know what is in Europe and other countries. But if he is expanding the time, this is also a trick, and this trick is not solving the problem. It is only passing the time, and all countries are in conflicts. And the Hamas problem is creating economic pressure on all countries, especially energy crisis. And this energy crisis is not a world problem, it is a problem of every woman in the house. Because war is not only affecting economy of nations, they are affecting individual peoples also. In India, we are having very high pressure. We are not getting easily gas. So this is the situation and result of this war. So I would like to say here, we should make the steps on behalf of BRICS countries, and I'm suggesting Scheller Institute that together and with other think tanks and organizations like our Beijing From China, our friend is speaking, and from Iran and from Malaysia, all BRICS countries, we can take them together and we can make the sign campaign, and we can call BRICS nations to organize urgent call meeting in United Nation. And if United Nation is not listening, let's make our white paper outside and give them, because it is a voice of unity that we cannot leave Iran alone to die. We need all countries together, and we want all people to be safe, and conflict should be resolved. Every conflict is having a solution. When Russia and Ukraine crisis started, everybody put up the pressure on Russia, and they put up Russia in sanctions, and they put up many pressures on Russia. That time, initially, world not understand what is the stake of Russia, what is the stake of Ukraine. Everybody was thinking Ukraine is very small country and Russia is a big country and Russia must be wrong. But slowly, slowly, everybody understand that behind Ukraine, America, NATO, and Europe supporting, and they were creating the conflict. Now, this is the same situation. Why America is supporting Israel? Why America is speaking and leading the war actions? So, I think it's not a time that BRICS countries should say together that America should go in sanction. Iran is in sanction from last 40 years approximately, but it is sustaining because they are having oil and they are controlling the Gulf countries' trade routes. And they are having very good relations with China, Russia, India, and other countries. So this is, regional cooperation. When we are having different regional relation and international relation, because it is a multipolar world, so a point is that Iran is having conflict with Israel due to long time their religious and economical and geographical problems. But we cannot create such situation that one country should die, or one country should come under pressure from whole side. So we need to support Israel, and through this important platform, I request all the speakers and Madam Halga that we should make white paper and we should call all nations of BRICS countries, Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, Global South countries. Together we can raise the voice to stop this war. So I would like to say this word because your topic today is very right. That do we have time to stop this nuclear escalation? I will say yes. All the last minutes are important, and in these last minutes, we can create new leadership in the world because world is divided and it is fracturing. All economic previous trade routes are fracturing, so we need new leadership and new ideas who can support and who can bring new civilization order. You said civilization word. So I would say now we already enter in digital civilization. Information everybody is getting and everybody is having right to give the ideas and solutions. So we can do internet campaign also, and we can call the leaders by our email strategies. I hope world leaders will listen us. Every voice is important, and our voice is for the safety and security of Earth, and we want to save humanity and environment of Earth. So nuclear escalation is in all case is not right, and we want that some solution should come in front line, and American public is also demonstrating. Nobody wants that humanity should get nuclear weapons, and we should get effect on our future generations. So thank you very much, and I hope this platform will create really new hope and solution for the world. And I think you are leading so well from last many years. And during this 1 month, when this war is happening, your message is going in whole world. Thank you very much, because we have to prevent this nuclear war, and we all are together in this mission with you. Thank you very much, Madam Helga.
And thank you very much for your remarks. We have just heard Ms. Purnima Anand of India, president of the BRICS International Forum. And what we're going to now begin is a discussion period from among the panelists, and also there are a couple of other contributions. Let me just ask before I go to that, Helga, if there's anything you'd like to say at this point about the discussion as a whole, prior to us going to other elements of discussion.
Well, I thank Purnima in particular, because I think the BRICS has become a voice not only representing the actual members of the BRICS, but is a spokes place for the global majority in general. And it is my conviction since a long time that we are in the kind of epochal transformation where the countries of the global south are absolutely determined to end the 500 years of colonial period. And, given the fact that, when you listen to Western media, their voice is never heard. You never hear what is the view of President Lula, President Modi, President Ramaphosa, or even other countries. So I think that we have to really make sure that the intention and the weight of the global majority, because the global majority are 85% of the human species, and they are in a completely different orientation. They want to have a world economic order based on equality, on a win-win cooperation, on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And I think we have to make sure that their voice is being heard much, much more in Europe, in the United States, because I think there is no way how we can have a return to peace if that voice is not becoming really the dominant voice. So I would really like to encourage you, Purnima, and other speakers from the countries of the global south that we have to make sure that the arguments of why the West must stop this present confrontation against Iran, that this is not just a matter between U.S., Israel, and Iran, but it is a matter of the whole world. And, we have to somehow create fora where we have more leaders from the countries of Africa, Asia, Latin America, because I think that is the only thing which can shift the balance in the world. That would be my immediate commentary.
All right. Well, very good. So what we're going to do is bring up Helga and also hopefully Dr. Khalil Shirgholami. I guess we should ask and see if he is back with us.
Yes, he is.
Very good. And also, good. And that's good. And we already have up our speaker from India. So there was let me first go to Mr. Shirgholami and see if he's able to speak at this point.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for all the speakers. Very briefly, only to add some points. This is a war of choice by the United States and the Zionist regime of Israel. And this is not Iran's fault that so far they have not obtained any of the goals they planned for. Be it toppling Iranian political establishment, be it provoking those separatists, movements inside Iran, be it, curbing Iran's retaliation, counter-strikes, and self-defense against all those malicious, aggression. This is the fact that the whole idea of the aggression was based and built upon, wrong assumptions and they could not obtain any of the strategic goals. This is not Iran's fault. This is their fault, their own fault. And the maximalist approach of President Trump won't work. The 15-point plan of Trump, which is based on Iranian surrender or Iranian capitulation, won't work. Because the United States is not in a position in terms of the battlefield and operation to be putting all those preconditions or surrender conditions for Iran. At the time being, we are, and the whole international community, we are in the threshold of a tragedy for the whole world, because of the fact that the United States and Israel, they are continuing their malicious aggression against our country. And based on the deadline, Trump has put the whole region is in a highly explosive situation, which will have universal implications for everybody, every member of the international community. So while we are at the threshold of a global tragedy, we are also in a turning point of possible international solidarity and international joint effort to prevent this tragedy happen. This is also a very good opportunity, and important countries like China, India, even Pakistan is that we highly value their initiatives can play important roles, and even European countries, and even some of the Arab countries in the Persian Gulf, because they are our neighbors, they are our friends, they are our Muslim brothers. So this situation is easy to avoid. Well, Iran is objecting any kind of ceasefire because we are emphasizing the need for permanent cessation of the confrontation and aggression against Iran. And there should be also some sort of joint mechanism for cooperation in safe passage in Hormuz Strait, and also compensation for all losses and damages that they have created, in this war of choice. Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me the second chance.
For your remarks. Let me just see if, Helga, you have anything immediately in response to what was said? I think you're muted.
I would like to ask the ambassador, we have the idea that if one could put what we call the extended oasis plan very forcefully on the international agenda, that could somehow, convince all the different countries to agree, that the paradigm of war by choice has to be replaced with a paradigm of joint cooperation. And we heard from Professor Zhang Weiwei that China has demonstrated the greening of the desert in large areas of China. So it is feasible. I think Ambassador Chaz Freeman also said that maybe the extended oasis plan can be like the phoenix out of the ashes. So I would like to ask both Purnima, and also I see that Professor Al-Mashiki from Oman is among the people on the screen. I would like to ask any one of you, what can you imagine, what can be done in addition to having this Zoom conference to really put this conception on the table? Because I think, it is potentially a catastrophe if nuclear weapons will be used. But on the other side, sometimes when you are confronting the absolute worst, that becomes an incentive to change the paradigm. So I would like to hear if you have any ideas, what more can we do to put this conception on the international agenda and make the whole world population aware that it exists?
Anyone?
Your question is from whom?
Go ahead.
any of you or
Helga, if you are asking this question that if nuclear war starts, then what will be the next? Huh? You are asking about the consequences after nuclear attack.
No. I mean, obviously, for example, I discussed yesterday with somebody about this seminar and laid out the idea, of having the extended Oasis plan as a immediate peace perspective. And this person said that my proposal was total fantasy because the war would play out. That, I mean, obviously, the different parties are determined, for whatever reasons that, that they want to conclude the war by military means. That, in my view, has the danger of the use of nuclear weapons. And I know that in the second panel, we will discuss this more. But I was asking, what can you imagine can be done more from our side and your side to put the alternative on the table, that joint economic development, if all nations from India to the Mediterranean, from the Caucasus to the Gulf, if all the nations would say, we want to move in a new paradigm of joint economic development, and what more can we do to make that perspective heard by all the relevant political leaders and governments?
Yes, this is a very important question, and it is the situation why we are together this minutes, because we need to unite all BRICS countries, because BRICS is having proper influence, and Trump many times tried to break the BRICS unity by tariffs and by other influences. So this is very high time that we should approach to the leadership of BRICS countries, if we can do. We are trying from our levels, but if we will unite whole world think tanks, then we can stop. Why not? Because China and Russia is having voting power, and recently France also give veto power in the favor of Iran, and Iran help them to pass the ship from the Hormuz reason, because France need energy. So France and Europe is also understanding, and I think France is in the side of the peace. And I don't know about UK, but China and Russia is also supporting Iranian side, and they also want peace. So this is very high time, through media or through our personal contacts, we should reach to the head of the states. And recently, I am going to Russia. Recently, Russian Deputy Prime Minister was here, and they had talks with our Prime Minister. I think we are preparing for this action. Uh, Only question is in BRICS also there is little fracture, because Iran and UAE, they are at different pages today due to American influence with UAE, and Iran is anti to the war stations of America in UAE, and some stations they blast. So this is the one situation where BRICS is having threat, but almost I feel we can cover it and we can heal it. We can have the different remedies, because this is very important to take action and to come in front line. And BRICS is a new leadership, and it is very good opportunity for BRICS countries to showcase the unity. So this is most important in this roundtable. I can request to all leaders who are present here, all experts who are observing our program, that we should raise voice that BRICS leadership should unite, and they should call meeting in United Nations and Security Council. So we can stop it in 2-3 days. This can move in 24 hours, but it needs unity and courage. This is important.
To ask for our Omani participant, Mr. Al-Mashiki, if there's something that you had that you wanted to contribute or respond to what the question was also that Helga just asked. Is he connected?
He is connected and he's, there we go.
Carry on?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead.
From and I think who can.
We're having problems with your connection. Anything we can do about that?
Well, one possibility is for him to turn his video off, and then we might be able to hear him better.
Could you try that?
I did, but his video is off. Mr. Amashiki, you can speak now.
Rejoined. He's trying to get his audio, I believe, at the moment. And if not, okay. Okay, well, we're going to try to work that out. I had a question. One other thing. Is it the case that we have, there's a couple of people that are not on the screen, and I don't know whether they're connected or not. There's Chaz Freeman. Is he actually available? Is he there? If so, it'd be nice if we could have him come on. And other than that, Mr. Shirgholami is still connected, but we don't have a video for him. Is that?
Yes, I'm in.
Very good. I'd like to put a question to you because this is something I'm going to ask. There are several questions we're getting in, but I'm going to sort of ask this as a generic question on behalf of, if you will, the American people. I'll put it that way. Those of us who are aware, painfully aware, of how immoral, criminal, and how unprovoked, clearly, the conflict is, are also aware that over the course of even the year prior to the latest conflict, there were attempts by the Foreign Ministry of Iran to propose a kind of dialogue to the United States in the form of discussions around nuclear technology, peaceful uses of nuclear technology, many other things. We'd like to know, and what is coming in from, I'm getting this on my cell phone, is the people of Iran are clearly, and the people of the United States are in no way enemies. And one of the things that people are trying to figure out is how, given the fact that there's an actual conflict, dialogues like this can best be pursued. Obviously, today is our attempt to do that. But we wanted to just ask you to give us an idea of what your view is of the Iranian people's view, of the people of the United States, and the need that both groups of people have to address, if you will, various responsibilities to trying to pursue an end to this conflict. It's difficult for people who are not in uniform. It's difficult for people who have no diplomatic status and so on. And just wanted to know if you had any view or anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, very clearly there is no animosity between Iranian and the American people. We highly, let's say, respect the American people, the great American nation. We don't have any, let's say, any sense of animosity against them. And very obviously, this has been the policies of the United States and in this region and against Iran after Islamic Republic that has been problematic. And unfortunately, this insane president in the White House, President Trump, has made everything much more terrible. If President Trump really pursued peace, he had 2 times he had the chance to do it in just 6 months. Last June, what happened when everything was going well and the Omanis initiative and goodwill was really contributing very positively. And again, this time, everything was in a good mood and Iran's proposal was really genuine in terms of, let's say, a very pragmatic, workable package of initiatives that could make the basis for, let's say, settlement. So, first of all, those people, those wise people and politicians in the United States, the deep state of the United States, I don't know, the Congress, everybody who is in love of peace and the real United States interests, and even the MAGA people who are really for America first, not Israel first, as President Trump is pursuing, and he has been deceiving many times by Netanyahu, who is wishing for a total, let's say, disaster and total chaos in the region. If there is wisdom back to the White House, and those people who are really loving for the United States interests, I think there will be many ways of, let's say, return to diplomacy. And based on the fact that Iran no more has any trust in diplomacy with the United States, if there is a new sense of, let's say, wisdom back to the United States and to the White House, those people who are going to talk, I think there are ways for, let's say, returning to diplomacy, and there will be also great chances for both great nations of Iran and the United States even to do cooperate in some economic, aspects that would benefit both nations.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We're going to try once more our friend from Oman, Mr. Al-Mashiki. Let's see if we can get your audio. Please try again.
Yes, Dr. Khalil said, I don't think nobody in this life can trust Trump and Netanyahu anyway, because actually they cannot fulfillment to any law in this planet. Regarding what I heard from Dr. Anand saying to support Israel, the troublemakers in this world, and just surprising why India trying during this time, and especially few years during the session of Prime Minister Modi, supporting Israel people, and they are actually all the world surprising about what this position of India of Gandhi, India of Nehru, those leaders who actually usually like Mandela, supporting all people who, trying to celebrate their country. And India actually in this time support Israel and Trump, even claim that they are in side of Iran. This is actually not true at all. And I just want to get a comment from Dr. Ann about that point.
I'm sorry, you misunderstood me.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, she's hearing you. She's going to respond.
Yes. I'm sorry, you misunderstood me. I didn't take any side of Israel. I am working with the BRICS countries, and I said that BRICS countries should come in front line to ceasefire, to stop this war, because in any case, war is harmful for all countries, and we are support. Iran is a member of BRICS countries, so we want that as a BRICS member, Iran should listen, and in Iran, for the support of Iran, and to ceasefire, BRICS countries should come in front line. I said like this.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment. All of us in the third world support this actually BRICS organization. But unfortunately, they showed during those years they cannot stand in front of states or in Europe. I mean, for example, a lot of, like what you said, no, member of BRICS actually states and Israel destroy this country. And India is not far away from this. Even we just heard only the condemnation of that aggression. But I think if you're thinking that BRICS will go and take part like Soviet Union during the last decades, you're supposed to do action, not just to say, because what happened, as you know, power countries like Brazil, Indian, China, those great countries actually, they have power than the states, by the way, if they are trying to work together. But unfortunately, seeing something not, I mean, we hopeless if what we see actually. Why? Do you think we have to wait time to get the result of this BRICS? We're supposed to get a currency instead of dollars, for example. And this that time has come. This period in the BRICS organization to do exactly in the ground what's supposed to do in order to be part of this world and to be against and what happened in this world, because only Trump leading this planet to the hell, also with his partner Netanyahu. And we're looking to India as a great country, a country of Gandhi, of Nehru. Those actually, he just, threw to the ground this great country when he supported Israel. The Israel, that country killed what happened, massacre of Gaza. And the India of Modi actually not taking care or not condemn this action. But we've seen the Modi visiting Netanyahu and he support him in order to kill. You get the point.
I'm agree with you. You are saying well said. India is always a country who is supporting non-violence, and we never participated in any group. Okay, but now this is high time for India to showcase its unity with the BRICS countries and global South, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And this time, America and Israel is wrong because they killed children, girls, and on the population they attack. So this is all wrong. And Iran is already in the sanction, and Iran and Russia is facing highest level of troubles from United Nations, America, NATO, Europe. Now it is high time for the BRICS countries. Yes, this leadership can raise the voice together. This is my point. I am speaking as an international expert at this international platform, and I will support, and I am towards the right side. I am not with any government, and I am not representative of government. And I would like to also share about the Modi visit to Israel. It was prefixed before the war. War started, and immediately before that he went, but it was not related to the war. It was prefixed from many months. We also checked what happened, why Modi ji went and immediately war started. But in protocols and in plans, meetings fixed from 6 months to 3 months before, and Netanyahu invited him many times. So as international figures they meet, I don't think it was any intention to initiate this war or to support Israel. My view is like this. I don't know how you are observing it, but India is not standing with any particular group. Even with Russia and India is having very traditional, very strong, trusted partnership. That time also, our Prime Minister says that it is a time of peace. We should not have war. So India is always towards peaceful side, non-violence, and we immediately want that this war should stop. And I feel that BRICS is the best platform, best countries, and they are handling G20 conference from last 4 years, because I know Indonesia, then India, then Brazil, then South Africa latest, they hold G20 conference. So we are capable to handle international matters, and we are having our alliances in all countries, especially Iran. We are having very good relation, and we should understand who is having source. They should be respected in the economic structure. So Iran is very important, their culture, their tradition, their oil resources, and their efficiency and their courage. So we want overall to cease fire by the BRICS country.
Thank you very much. You are.
Excuse me, sir.
I just want to thank. I just want to thank her. Actually, she's explained. Thank you for you, Dr. Anand. You are actually, maybe I not understand, but now you give everything is clear. And I just want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and that is exactly the purpose of today's meeting. I think Helga has something to say, and I believe we have also Dennis Small. So Helga?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you are saying, Mr. Al-Mashiki, but I would, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, but I would really bring in one consideration. I mean, the epochal change, what we are experiencing right now, which I think is not reversible, because the countries of the global south, for the first time, do have the chance to overcome the relics of colonialism, basically because of the rise of China and the spectacular economic miracle that country has made in the last 40 years. The Belt and Road Initiative has given many countries of the global south for the first time the chance to engage in their own economic development infrastructure, controlling the use of their own raw materials, developing the industrial chain in their own countries. But unfortunately, that development has not been accepted by most of the leadership of the so-called collective West. And we have seen enormous efforts to divide and conquer. We should not underestimate the role of the British Empire, which some people mistakenly think is no longer existent. But if you look at the various interruptions in the unity of the global south, you are always certain to find the hands of the British. And what we're seeing in the Middle East right now is not least the result of the Sykes-Picot dividing of the lines of countries and border lines and so forth. So I think it would be extremely important for the countries of the global south to be aware of any efforts to, pull people out of the BRICS, to manipulate them, to, somehow divide and conquer. I think President Lula of Brazil has stated a couple of days ago that the entire global south is faced with the danger of a recolonization. And I think that there must be an open discussion about that, because I think the absolute worst tragedy which could happen is if the countries of the global south would allow to be divided among themselves. So I think that is because only if they speak with one voice can they, in my view, be dominant over the present efforts to keep the status quo, a status quo which cannot be kept anyway, but it could lead to World War III if that effort is being maintained. So that would be my only remark to you.
Just before you respond, Dennis, you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, just my name is Dennis Small. I'm from EIR. Just to provide a little context for this discussion, this is the third emergency EIR roundtable which we have pulled together this year. The first one was on January 12th. The immediate instigation of that was what had just happened in Venezuela. And the theme of that discussion was the crisis is much worse than you think it is, and what can we do to solve it? The second emergency roundtable dialogue with the idea of coming up with solutions was on March the 2nd. The headline on that was, "Are we on the road to Armageddon with the danger of nuclear war?" After what we saw in Venezuela, complete ripping up of any semblance of international law, the rights of nations, and so on. Then Cuba, the starvation embargo to transform Cuba into another Gaza through economic sanctions, and of course, the beginning of the Iranian war. Today, the April 6th Emergency Roundtable is with the same idea that, is it possible to stop this crisis before it goes to nuclear escalation, and posing the concept of a dialogue of civilizations. Now, we can look at the world, all of us, in two different ways. One way is the way we have all been encouraged to look at the world, and the media encourages us, which is from our immediate national or personal self-interest and looking at the rest of the world and finding the conflicts. And there are plenty. We could spend endless hours looking at them, and most of them are quite legitimate. But there's another way to look at the world, which is perhaps there is a way where even countries that seem to be in the utmost conflict can find a solution. And I want to point to Dr. Shirgholami's response to what our moderator, Dennis Speed, asked about what would be the basis for the United States people and the Iranian people to find a solution to this. Our intention here, as a United States-based organization, the EIR is based in the United States. I'm North American. I live near Washington, D.C. We urgently need a dialogue with countries, including and especially Iran, where there seems to be the greatest conflict, to find a solution. And I think that what Helga has pointed out, that we have to think of a total shift in the global situation, to look at it with new eyes, to find that solution, like what Dr. Shirgholami was saying. There is a basis for economic cooperation between the United States and Iran, and in fact, the entire greater Southwest Asia, which poses the basis for that. Finally, our first meeting, the Emergency Roundtable, stated that we were calling this because we had the view that a major phase change, a total transformation of the world strategic situation had occurred over the period of the end of December into January, where the entire system was in a breakdown collapse, and therefore only solutions which looked at a total transformation of that system along the lines of what some people would call very impractical, but this greater oasis plan and BRICS and SCO direction towards an entirely changed global security and development architecture. That's the only basis for actually finding a solution. So the purpose of this third emergency roundtable is exactly the kind of discussion that we're having here. Some of it is difficult, some of it is very frank, but it is absolutely necessary if especially we in the United States and others in Europe can be in a situation to transform our countries as well to make a global solution possible.
Like to...
Can I make a comment about...
Go ahead, please.
In fact, we saw during and this year Actually, it's 7 sessions in Muscat, as well in Italy, and the final one in Geneva. And between the government of the United States and Iran, the foreign minister of Iran, Oman. And everything is actually in the right direction. The leaders in the White House, they're looking for the war. Have a good discussion in this table, and we are not policymakers. What we can do? We cannot stop the war. We cannot, I mean, that president, the White House, elected by the people of states. But unfortunately, he just come to the power in order to launch wars in different countries, starting from Venezuela, your neighbors, in Iran, and maybe next another country. So we are actually, and even the wisdom people staying together, like, and I don't think we cannot do anything because we don't have the power. So, I mean, the politicians who make a difference, like you and like me, cannot do anything, unfortunately, during this time. Netanyahu in the power and Trump in the power.
I'd like to introduce something here because I think it may help the discussion. I realize other people may have other things, and I believe that Mr. Shirgholami is still with us. Helga, there are several questions, as anybody knows, comes in many times. You can't address them all, but it's certainly noticeable to everyone that there has been an attempt to hijack Christianity and use it in the name of war. The Pope, as we referenced in our opening remarks, referred to this. And many consider this to be a sacrilege. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, a former congressperson from America, referred to this yesterday in a speech that she gave. But you have spoken about the methods of diplomacy of Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa. Certainly, everyone here is aware of something called the Epstein class. It is a term that has now become widely used and is referring to practices which cannot be characterized by anything other than satanic, except perhaps pre-satanic, pagan, in their own characterization. And in this context, there seems to be an attempt to use a kind of anti-Christian view of Christianity, characteristic of the Crusades, for example, to justify the unjustifiable. So Helga, the question that I'm going to pose, rather than pose all these individual ones, to you is, what does it you mean by this diplomacy, this method of coincidence of opposites, of bringing together, obviously, people who have differences, divergent views, and why are you referring to this figure who is apparently a Catholic figure, but not referring to him as a religious figure at all, as in that way, but someone whose method of diplomacy and approach is the one that we need now?
Well, because I think we as a human species are differentiated from all other forms of life on the planet, and also the only species known in the entire universe so far. With other words, there may be other intelligent beings somewhere in the 2 trillion galaxies, but they have not yet contacted us. So we are the only known species gifted with reason. And that is a quality which enables us to always find a solution on a higher level than the level at which the conflict arose. Now, that is a way of thinking which, for the first time, was introduced by Nicolaus of Cues. And it's quite significant when he came up with this idea. Nicolaus of Cues was naturally a cardinal. He was sort of the foreign minister of the church at his time. And he was a great thinker. He was the towering mind of the 15th century. He discovered modern science. He developed the arguments for the sovereign nation state by that government is only legitimate with the consent of the governed. He developed for the first time the representative system of government and so forth. He is not adequately known, but he is at least as important as Confucius, Plato, Leibniz, and other towering leading thinkers of the universal history. So when when he traveled to Byzantium to bring the delegation of the Orthodox Christian Church to the Council of Florence, he dialogued with great leaders like Bessarion, Plethon, who were the leading Platonists of the time. And he, in this travel on the ocean, which took several weeks, he discovered a method of thinking which he called the coincidence of opposite, coincidentia oppositorum. He naturally arrived at that idea through a theological reflection, namely that the oneness of God, of the creator, of Allah, of the creator of all the universe, is of a higher quality than all its creation. And he basically developed this as a method of thinking whereby the human creativity always can synthesize that higher power of thinking to in basically being in the image of God. Now, that method was also applied by him after the takeover of Constantinople in 1453 by the Muslims, which caused a big crisis in the West. People thought this was a terrible sort of clash of civilization of the time. But he developed out of that a very beautiful Socratic dialogue where 17 representatives of nations and religions all go to God and say, we are all fighting in your name. We are killing each other in your name. Can you help us a method of how we can stop doing that? And then God said, you are all philosophers in your religion, in your nation. And as philosophers, you can recognize there is only one truth. So then the 17 representatives said, yes, we understand. But still, there's so much blood which was already spilled in fighting. Can you help us some more? So then God answers them and says, you are all philosophers, and you can see the difference between the prophets and the one God, and the message of the one God as being interpreted by the different prophets. So finally, they all agree that there is a one truth which creative reason can recognize, and all the philosophers can accomplish that. So when I first encountered that dialogue many years ago, I actually went to see if such a method exists in other great religions and cultures. And indeed, you find in every great religion that same idea. For example, in India, it's in the Song of Creation, which belongs to the Rig Vedic writings, and the idea that there is this one truth emanating, coming from this one creation. And similar ideas exist in every culture around the world. And I think we as human beings have to recognize that we are one, and that we have a cosmological order. In India, you call it cosmology. In Europe, you call it natural law, which means there is a lawfulness within the creation, which we can recognize through our creative reason. And I think we have reached in the course of universal history that moment where we either make that intellectual jump, so to speak, to identify ourselves with the one humanity first. Because we have reached for the first time a situation where, because of nuclear weapons, because of the internet, because of pandemics, we are sitting in one boat. And either we solve our problems together or we may annihilate ourselves. So this is the big challenge in front of all of us. And I think the method of the coincidence of opposite gives us the possibility to absolutely make that jump. And I try to do that in my initial remarks by referring to the fact that just today is the day where astronauts are for the first time, as part of the Artemis travel, reaching 4,000 miles beyond the moon. This is a historic first. And if you project that kind of development with India, China, Russia having extremely advanced space programs, if we want to survive as a human species in 100 years, either we will have resolved this present conflict and work together in space travel, that we have developed villages on the moon, that we are onto creating a city on Mars, that we will have thermonuclear fusion as fuel for interstellar travel, and that we will have to make the jump to think about the one humanity, or we will never exist. And I think we are in that particular transformation of history where I'm quite confident that the human mind is capable of thinking in this way. In other words, start to solve the problems in the present from a perspective of the future and not work our way up, from one conflict to the next, but that we look at the solution 100 years from now first, and that way gain the conceptual power to address the problems in the present in a much different way.
Thank you very much for that, Helga. We are now pretty much at time. I want to make sure to allow, if Dr. Shirgholami is still with us from Iran, if he has any final remarks he'd like to make before we go to our transition to the next panel. So if you're there, I'll offer that to you. He's not on now? Okay, fine. So let's go to Purnima Anand. Any final remarks?
Thank you. This was really good discussion. And as Madam Helga said about India, China, Russia, and we all are connected under the framework of BRICS, Global South, and for peaceful cooperation. I want to know from Madam Helga and Schiller Institute how we can unite and raise voice together to the BRICS leadership, one thing. Second thing, how we can strongly protect humanity and nuclear escalation. So after this discussion in first panel and second panel, we will together discuss, and if needed, we will make the paper together and we shall send to the leadership. I wish that this war, we should have ceasefire, and nuclear escalation is completely not acceptable by the humanity for the future generations and for our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Al-Mashiki, since you're there, do you have anything that you'd like to say finally before we go to our conclusion? I think you're muted.
To thank everybody about all speakers. Actually, we learn a lot from them, and actually the issue which take place is very good. And we are very pleased about what you are doing in this forum. Yani. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. And Helga, anything you'd like to say as we go to conclusion?
Well, I would like to also, address specifically the Foreign Minister of Oman through you, maybe Mr. Al-Mashiki, because he has played a very important role in the Geneva discussion, and also, has made very significant proposals afterwards. So maybe we can inform him about the approach we want to take about the extended OASIS plan, because I think if governments would actually start to discuss it, we are just a private institution, we are just a think tank with the idea of producing ideas. But I think it is, as we discussed, we had many conferences about the OASIS plan before. The Palestinian ambassador Hassassian participated in many of them and has made it sort of his personal commitment to promote the OASIS plan, because he believes that the only way the Palestinian state will have a chance is in the context of such an extended OASIS development of the region. And I would also ask you, Purnima, that maybe we can formulate out of this conference a proposal to the leadership of the BRICS, the governments of the BRICS, but also, they have institutions, they have think tank networks, they have university networks, that we make it a challenge to the universities and the think tanks of all BRICS countries to start to discuss this idea, because, in a short Zoom conference, we can only give a general idea. But as I said, the scientists, the engineers, the intellectuals of all BRICS countries should actually work out concretely, what steps would be needed to start implementing the concrete economic development corridors of the BRICS. How could we assemble, we already had at previous conferences engineers who were part of making water projects for different countries who have been blocked by political developments, but who are ready to go, because all these engineers would like to, implement the development plan. And I think we should take this seminar, as a starting point to organize. This is not something we can conclude in one meeting, but it will only be the result of an explosion of organizing among students, among universities, think tanks, to actually make this idea popular. And I think if we would get the support from some gifted video people, I can imagine that if you make video animations of how Southwest Asia would look after 20 years with the extended OASIS plan, it would capture the imagination and help to organize a lot of people who, when you say extended OASIS plan, they don't really get it, what it means. It would mean a life in peace, prosperity, and security for all the people of the extended Southwest Asian region. So my suggestion would be that we conclude out of this meeting such an appeal to the BRICS leadership to support this.
Madam Helga, thank you very much for your comment about Oman, and also recognition of effort of Oman for the peace, not just in this matter in the Gulf, but also in different countries in this planet. I'm very pleased to hear that from you.
All right, thank you. So we want to also thank Chaz Freeman of the United States, former Assistant Secretary of Defense and former Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Ms. Purnima Anand of India, President of the BRICS International Forum, Ambassador Professor Dr. Manuel Hassassian from Palestine and Palestinian Authority, Professor Zhang Weiwei, Professor of International Relations at Fudan University, and Dr. Khalil Shirgholami of Iran, Iran's ambassador to Armenia. Our next panel will be beginning in approximately a half an hour We want to thank, of course, all of you for listening and being part of today. I'd just like to say as we go to conclusion that today is also the birthday, back in 1483, of the great artist Raphael, one of the key elements of the Renaissance. We clearly need a Renaissance both in culture and in optimism. And we hope that this panel has helped to contribute to that initiative. We'll see you again shortly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.